it's always that final moment. So we may be live streaming to YouTube, and if we are, welcome everybody who's in my audience. Again, this is Dr. Keith McNally, and I think we are live streaming, so it's always good. This is, of course, Dr. Keith McNally. These are conversations with Mitch Gray. Mitch, always welcome. I think we are now live streaming and we are being recorded, so welcome to the call.
Cheers, my friend. Good to see you.
Cheers. It's always good to see you. It's another Monday. Where are you in the world right now? Where are you still in New
New
Mexico?
Mexico.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
you are 2 hours behind me.
I am. It is 9 o'clock recording time. You always get me up early.
I do appreciate your diligence in joining me at such an early hour for you.
It's not that
So
early, but kind of.
So we are diving into men's mental health. And so with the challenges that men face with mental health issues, and then really accepting the fact that they have some ownership in how they approach just feeling better, being better. I would like to kind of talk to you about what that really means truthfully, and just in terms of accepting, our responsibility, accepting our role in being healthy. I'd rather use the word being healthy or the phrase. I've been using that since we kind of started the Envision Speaker series, gosh, a year ago, rather than talking about, illnesses and disease. And of course, I don't, even though I'm a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't diagnose and treat. So it's easier just to say um, wellness and what that truly means. So can we dive into that conversation?
Love to. Let's go.
Okay. So what does it mean for men to accept their role in any type of therapeutic process?
Yeah, it's intriguing, right? Because things happen to us. So I think last week or the week before we talked about uh childhood, and really the moment that we're all at our best is when we're 2 years old, because we're curious and we don't have much fear, if any. We're just curious about life, and we're exploring, and we're dancing, and we're coloring on sidewalks, and we're learning to walk, and we're doing all of these things that 2, 3, 4 year olds do. And that's really almost when we're at our best, because we're creating our universal experience in a way that we want it to exist.
Mm.
And it's kind of interesting hearing parents talk about 2, 3, 4 year olds about how selfish they are. And it's like, no, they're actually living the life they should be living in the way that they want to be living. And we just get domesticated and taught out of that. And so, where am I going with this? It's really interesting because in our childhood, we can't really control what we're taught. We can't control how we're treated. We can't control the trauma that happens to us that then as adults we have to reconcile and deal with.
Mm.
And so, really, the acceptance is probably the most challenging piece of healing, but also the most important, because at some point we have to accept my parents treated me a certain way. Other people, potentially family members, friends, teachers, whoever, they did certain things to me or said certain things to me that caused me to have the issues that I have now. But I have to accept that that was the reality, because I can't go backwards and change it. That's
Mm.
the unfortunate part of all this, right? Is when trauma happens to us, we can't go back and change it. And so then at some point, we have to find within ourselves the ability to begin healing and begin reconciling something that we cannot change and something that was potentially outside of our control. Let me add, we all do things that hurt other people. All of us. We do things and say things that hurt other people. It may be intentionally, it may be unintentionally, but we all do and say things that hurt other people because all of us are living from some form of trauma, making the best decisions that we can make. And so when we're talking about how do we take responsibility and how do we move along the healing process, The first piece of that responsibility is accepting what has happened to us and then making the decision to no longer allow whatever happened to us to have the power over us. We can take back the power, and we do that through healing.
So can I push back a little bit? Just a little bit.
Yes, please.
You're mentioning trauma a lot today. So, and especially at a young age. So we are all
Yes,
experiencing trauma. Can you, now that may, for some people, that may literally mean an abusive situation or
yes,
a catastrophic natural disaster or
yep,
a catastrophic man-made disaster. These are considered
yes,
traumas, but you're using them as a generic or general term as part of our growing up. Can you clarify that, please? Because some people don't think that they have experienced quote unquote trauma, although they have been, you know, maybe thought that I could have had better parents. If my parents had done this, I would have been better off as an
sure.
adult. So can you clarify
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Yeah, so and in the world of psychology and mental health especially, you'll hear people use the phrase little t's and big T's. So little traumas, lowercase, and big traumas, uppercase. Big traumas would be uh, physical abuse, emotional abuse, things of the nature that you're talking about. Not necessarily extreme, but it could be abusive situations. Little T's could mean uh, I have a fear of public speaking because when I was in third grade, I was asked to get in front of my class and give a speech, and everyone laughed at me. Okay, that would be an example of something that maybe caused a little T per se, because now they feel a sense of non approval. They feel a sense of rejection. They feel a sense of uh, stage fright that I can't get on stage in front of people and speak because of what happened to me in third grade. So when we look at it from that perspective, every single human being that's ever lived and ever will live experiences trauma. It's just on what scale of the trauma scale is this on? For other people, it's years of emotional abuse or physical abuse or other things of other natures. Those may become big T's and those lead to major, major disorders. But the little T's can as well. So, what we have to remember is someone may say, well, I had a great childhood, but then they deal with rejection because maybe their father rejected them in small, subtle ways. The little T's build big T's. And so it's just like stacking a deck of bricks. It's one small brick at a time, but pretty soon you have a wall. And so those little T's add up over time and become big T's. So everyone deals with trauma. It's just on a different scale. And some people may be better equipped to deal with that trauma, especially at a young age, than others. Some people may be better equipped for certain reasons. Some people, sometimes, who knows? Sometimes it's because they had a great support system within their sphere of influence and impact. So they were able to deal with those at a younger age where they didn't lie dormant for decades. And then at 45, 46 years old, they're having to deal with them.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, we could easily say, or I could say, as my part of my pushback today, is that we all have life experiences, and not all life
Yes,
experiences have positive outcomes. But when we come to understand that we can take control back through accepting the fact that these experiences, one, and I'll list them sequentially, did occur. Two, they were outside of our realm of influence or control at the time. And three, they had both an emotional and psychological impact on who we are and our perspective on ourselves. How then can we learn, and this is where the challenge comes in, to accept that? So, what is the process of acceptance, if any? Because sometimes we don't
right.
want to do that. We just want to say,
Yeah,
or we just want to hide from them. We want to ignore them. We want to deny them. And there's so much,
yeah,
psychological vernacular around that. But in order to heal, in order to grow, we have to appreciate, I think that's probably maybe even a good word, we have to appreciate what has happened to us because it created us.
Yeah, and that's difficult depending on the circumstance, right? Because, in fact, I had a conversation with a friend not long ago, and we were having a very similar conversation, and we were talking about forgiveness.
Mm,
And this person literally said, I will not and cannot forgive the person that did what they did to me. And they may never be able to. And so it's like, well, forgiveness has to be a part of the healing process, some believe. It's like, well, does it? I don't know if it does. I think that's the magic of the healing process is it is authentic to each of us. And by the way, when different things happen in life, we all heal differently. Meaning something happened to me 10 years ago, I heal differently than I do today.
mm,
And in 10 years, I'm going to heal differently than I do at this very moment. And in 30 years, it'll be different than it was 10 years from now because we all grow and we mature and we have more tools in the toolbox. And that's kind of the hope, right? Is that we continue gathering tools that we can recall, refer back to, and use when these moments take place. But really, the answer to healing is the response that none of us want to hear. Number one, it takes time. It just takes time. And that is the hard part of healing because it takes that repetition over time to truly understand what happened to us, may or may not understand why it happened to us, but the what, and then how to move on from that circumstance. That takes time and repetition over time. That's why I say showing up is the most important action we can take because it's in the showing up that we give the universe the time it needs to work through us and in us and to heal us. And then I think it does take repetition. It takes showing up every single day, every single moment, getting a little better each time. Again, I think last week or the week before I referred it to going to the gym and lifting weights. You
yes.
don't you don't get in shape overnight. Like it does human body doesn't work that way. And our spirit works very similarly. It doesn't heal overnight. Now, we can have moments that we have leaps and bounds of healing, but the healing process, I actually believe, is a lifelong process. That's a very Thich Nhat Hanh kind of Buddhist belief, is that we're never healed in the moment, we're actually healed over time. And so we have to continue coming back to that healing. And so for me, I think it's really wise to find those daily anchors, those behaviors, those things you can recall and come back to, whether it's meditation, whether it's reading, whether it's taking a walk, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's going out with friends, whatever that looks like for you. Coming back to those time and time again becomes the medicine by which we can truly begin finding our healing and finding our footing again. Because what we do know is something else in life is going to happen.
Well, can
Something else in life is going to occur. Yeah.
true, very true. And so I want to kind of go kind of marry a couple of things or kind of bring some pieces to this conversation together. Um, Now, I am not a guru in Buddhist theology or philosophy or practice, although I'm beginning to appreciate some of that more and more. My initial understanding is that there is a pathway to enlightenment. I think that's
Mm.
either straight on, what it is or some type of idea around that. And that's referencing the idea that we are always on that path, as you're saying. Maybe it's a pathway of healing, a process of healing, or and I always seem to come back to this when I have conversations with people way back when I was in college, and this is a long time ago when I was in undergraduate school, studying to be a social worker. The chair of the department had a motto, and she always said, "We are always in the process of becoming. Change is
Mm.
always occurring." Now,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that change can be intentional, sometimes that
Yeah.
change cannot be intentional, or directly we just let life happen to us. And as a result, we are changing, we are responding to our life events. More so, she wants us to understand that we have some control if we have intention about how we approach life and the circumstances that life gives us. And so as an adult now, as an adult male now in my life, I'm beginning to equate what she taught many, many years later with my understanding of the pathway to enlightenment, meaning
Mm,
that we have, if we give it intention, if we give it purpose, and if we give it value, we have the ability to control how we grow internally,
yeah, yeah.
mentally, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, in terms of how we approach life and what life gives us.
Mhm.
Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, there's another Buddhist saying that says the path to enlightenment is found when you chop wood and carry water. And so what that means is when you do the mundane, when you just show up every day and continue doing the basics of life, that's where enlightenment is found. And so I think that really relates to the healing process and to what your professor, the mantra that they had and used and put on their wall or whatever, is that really it is the becoming is in the becoming. It's in showing up each day. And that is enough. And it's like I don't remember if I shared this on this conversation or not a few weeks ago, but I was asking myself a question a couple of weeks ago, and that was, am I okay with understanding that my sheer human existence is my worth, that I don't have to be doing, that I don't have to be accomplishing, that I don't have to be taking action, but just by existing, I am worthy? Because that is a different mindset. And when we're talking about healing, we often find ourselves finding our value and our worth in the doing, because that's what society tells us. We have to be making money. We have to be making progress. We have to be doing something. And I struggle with it as bad as anyone. But I'm always asking myself the question, am I okay with just knowing that my existence in this experience is my worthiness? And that's it. And that is really the beginning of healing. The beginning of healing is knowing that I'm worthy no matter what happens to me. No matter what anyone else did to me, I am worthy. I read something in a book recently that says something to the effect of, I know I have the right to be here because I'm here. Like just by existing, I know I have the right to be here. That's a real change in mindset. And so when we're talking, especially about men's health, and this is all really interesting to me because what's fun about what you and I talk about is we talk about a lot of things that are very emotional based. And that is very, very rebellious against what men are usually taught in our society. Even though we've shifted and changed a little bit, we still have this society that talks about manhood like it's some mythological warrior mindset. And it's like, but we're really dealing with from the emotional mindset. And that to me is the most important and valued asset as humans is our emotions and our spirit and our being, not our doing. And that's very rebellious when it comes to the way most men are taught how to be men.
Well, two things, just kind of to add value to this. One, the idea that existence is primary over doing has been a
Yeah,
consistent um, conversation that you're having. I think more and more.
yeah,
So we have approached that topic here, even as a subtopic. It's just part of it's part of who you are now. I think
yeah,
you're embracing that, and so with every conversation that you have, I think it's your maybe subconscious or even conscious intention to kind of bring that to the forefront. And so that's never something to be ashamed of, or
yeah,
it's part of who you are now. You are appreciating living
yeah.
versus discounting or appreciating the doing aspect. We've even mentioned the fact that human beings are the only species that has this quotation: you have to earn a living. How
Yes,
did that
yes,
come into existence? That's just
right.
horrible. Every other species just
Yeah,
lives, they just
yeah,
exist.
yeah,
We are the only people who say, well, you have to earn it. What the
yeah.
hell?
Right, right. It's
Haven't you?
inhumane when you think about it. Really, it really is. Yeah,
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 absolutely. And then the other part of that, I'm thinking of, what does it mean how do we define manhood and what does it mean to be a man? And so there's the Roman gladiator that, immediately comes to mind, this, the extreme warrior type of persona. And then at the flip side of that, I'm going back to the Buddha and Jesus personas, which is a very different look they were both men. To my understanding, Buddha was a man. Jesus Christ didn't identify himself as a man. At least, the narrative tells us that he was a man, but a very different persona in terms of the flip side of the coin, which may be the gladiator. And so maybe there's a balance between the two. At this point, I don't know. I was once a Marine, so I understand the gladiator component of who I am. And
Mhm.
the more I approach my own healing and my own understanding of existence, I do balance that with that of, the Jesus Christ persona, the person who wants to heal and teach and
Yeah.
help others along the pathway as well. And so there's a lot of value to what you're saying. And so I ask you to continue to approach that in the very humane way that you're doing and helping yourself and others understand it.
Yeah, I think the mistake we make when we teach manhood is we don't teach the balance of the masculine feminine. So we lean toward, in generality,
Mhm.
we lean toward teaching young boys the masculine, and we lean toward teaching young women the feminine, when we really should be teaching the balance of both, because there is a necessity and a place for both energies. And so, what you're identifying when you're talking about the great religious philosophers and teachers is they evidently, in this human experience, were able to find the balance of both masculine and feminine. And we're able to function within both energies when the time calls for it. And so, when you think about even, you mentioned being in the Marine Corps, or you mentioned, or any type of warrior mindset, females can play that role just as well or even better sometimes as males. It's just they weren't given the opportunity until very recently. And so then it's like, okay, so that brings about this balance again of masculine, feminine energy, where we should all be kind of dancing in between. And I'll bring up an example. Unfortunately, this weekend, one of our presidential candidates, there was an attempted assassination. Unfortunately, Donald Trump survived and is here to continue his campaign. And I'm not saying that as saying I'm support. I'm just saying that fortunately he's still alive and able to do what he wants to do on Earth, because we don't want anyone to suffer. Um, the unfortunate experience that I'm seeing is people are identifying his survival as manhood. That's what a man looks like, and it's like that's where I'm kind of going with all of this is we're so misidentifying circumstances, and we're so misidentifying and mislabeling this mythological male warrior that we're still bringing about the teaching of that mythological male warrior. And in my opinion, that is what has led to the suffrage in mental emotional health among males, is because of that mythological teaching that a man survived an assassination attempt, so that makes him more of a man. No, it doesn't. What it probably makes him is really lucky. That's probably what it makes him. It has nothing to do with male energy or feminine energy. It just makes him really, really lucky, which is a good thing, by the way. I'm very, very glad that he's lucky. But on the same token, we can take these circumstances and really learn from them, change our vernacular, change our verbiage, and really change the teachings as we raise these 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds so that they can be the shift creators in how we think and move and exist, the culture of humanity. And so, my encouragement to any listeners or viewers is if there's a mythological teaching out there, don't worry about debunking it or worry about whatever, just stop teaching it. Like, it's that easy. And people have asked me before, well, how do we stop? Well, you just stop teaching them. That's what I've done in my life when I was in abusive belief systems and I got out of those belief systems. I stopped teaching them because they caused me harm. I'm sorry. They caused me harm, and I don't want that to do that anymore. So,
Totally, totally agree. And so what we have to do, I think, from this point forward is to provide some type of understanding of how to approach that balance. And so I would
Yeah.
love further conversations with you to kind of address what it means to be balanced. How can we approach emotions from a man's perspective,
Love it.
and it's not always about, having to cry or needing to cry. I mean, sometimes that's appropriate and applicable to situations. And especially for me, I'm very good at that. I've cried before.
Yes.
And because in very scary situations when life implodes or explodes, um, that has been a reaction that I have taken.
Yeah.
Maybe now I will still do it given certain circumstances, but there's also, well, I want to say this as a final kind of thought. It's a way of expression and expressing and releasing the energies that are inside my body that have to be let go. I have to have
Yes.
a way of finding a way of just allowing that energy to flow. Because I know at this point in my life, I've found out that if I don't find a way of releasing that energy, allowing it to flow
Mhm.
through me and out of me, it gets stuck in the body and my body develops
Yeah.
inappropriate behaviors or conditions or diseases, very possible. So we need to find a way of helping men, really helping men release that energy in a way that, as you said, is really appropriate, applicable, and good for them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love it.
Let's have those conversations. Vince, great. Thank you so much. I know I got you up early. You have a great day. For those of you who are watching and listening, you have a great day as well. And I'll see you next time. Take care.